And it's funny because you may not like this story, but
Uh-oh.
I think others may get a kick out of it. And
Hey y'all, welcome to the new TCID Studios. We're super excited. We're upgrading y'all. This is the CATAN branded episodes. We're super excited. Sponsored by, of course, Settlers of Catan, my favorite board game. You guys already know. Don't act brand new. So if you haven't already got the base game, make sure to go to CATANshop.com to get the base game. Use code TCID to get 10% off. And make sure if you guys are checking out these episodes and loving them to like, subscribe, share them. You can always find out other episodes with other fans that we have, champions of Catans, and other TCID guests, of course, from the original TCID podcast. Today, I'm super excited. We have our first in-person guest, and I'm super excited to have Jon Lee Brody. Check him out on Geghead, his YouTube and gaming page with his best friend and partner, Freddie Pritz Jr. Some of you guys may have heard the name. And also, make sure to check out Jon Lee Brody in this amazing, scary James Wan film that just came out in theaters and HBO literally just last weekend. It's super scary, super just like, you gotta watch it. But yeah, he's in that, and he makes his own movies. You can check him out, his short Repressed. I'll leave some links below, so make sure to look at that. To know Kelly and Guido because of you, because you brought them onto Geghead.
it's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Great people. Shout out to Guido Teuber, son of Klaus Teuber, of course. And
Yes.
brother of Benny Teuber.
Yes.
And, Kelly Schmitz.
All the cool people at CATAN Studios.
Absolutely. Morgan Dontonville, Donna Pryor, and Stephanie. Last name's escaping me. There's a lot of cool
Pete,
people over there.
all of them.
Alex Colon, who did all the graphics for us.
Yes.
And all the character cards, so I just want to make sure that... I know I'm forgetting a couple people. There's Pete, there's Darren. They got a great team over there.
They really do. They really do. Yeah. But it was because you invited them to kind of be a part of Geghead as well last year during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, so that started when the first contact I had with Kelly was actually in 2019.
Oh, really?
And we were still doing in-person studio stuff, and I was, so we did a couple just on our own so I could send it to her and say, what do you think about this being an official collaboration? And then, communication as it does, because this is close to the holidays, it kind of dips off, and not through the fault of anybody, just other than our
timing
Christian
or whatever.
Calendar or whatever you want to because there's Christmas and everything. But
yeah.
Then the lockdown started happening, or the COVID lockdown announcement started happening. So I reached out to Kelly and just said, "Hey, I have this idea to do a virtual version of Catan, but still using an analog board, and I'd love to talk to you about it." And sure enough, and luckily enough, Kelly messaged me back right away saying, "I was just about to message you. Like, let's touch base." And basically, I just gave her a whole pitch, like, rundown of how I saw the show looking, how I was going to make it work, how I was going to deal with development cards and stuff like that. And sent it over. She said, this looks good. And Morgan had some other ideas of, how about try this and this and this.
Yeah.
And that was enough for us to go, okay, let's try it out and see what happens. And so then it was like April of last year, we did the first one, and it was just a Zoom meeting superimposed onto a screen using some little bit of tech trickery, and it was very, very grassroots and very, very raw.
Yeah.
Very bare bones, but the content was clearly there, and the viewership was nice, and we just kept building it, and hopefully, like, this next wave that we're gonna do, the gaming, I'm trying to up the game a little more even. And,
I love that.
Make it a little more polished. So it's been great. Like I said, it was good timing, really. It's funny, ironically good timing, but bad for the world because COVID was happening.
Yeah.
And but it was a great experience. Like we'll never experience something like that again. Really, hopefully.
Let's hope. Yeah.
But it was a wild ride, and just really fun watching it grow. And we'll be back at it hopefully soon to keep it growing.
Totally. Well, thank you for doing it. Thank you for inviting me. I feel like, especially when it was just starting, I was just a viewer, and I was just a fan. Even though it's like, I mean, kind of like this is very grassroots, but like as just a watcher, it was really fun to see it like step up its game each time because like I was already really just into it from the jump. So thank you for making that move. I'm very grateful to be a part of it regardless. I'll say that.
You were a great addition. It was something that honestly was missing energy-wise. And also, look, I am always saying, and the first thing, when I texted Gerard the first time he came on the show, and I told him, like, look, I'm supposed to be the unbiased host. But I will not be upset if a brother wins the first.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Because you're the first brother to come on, and come on the
show, yeah.
So it's just like, let's represent, man. Let's show them.
Oh, and I was coming, and I really wanted to as well, and so.
I didn't even have to cheat. I was gonna.
Oh my God! Stop!
Not that I do that regularly.
No, he would never.
Well, don't say never.
I know. I guess I shouldn't speak for you, really, even.
Maybe if Sarvat comes back, I'll slip you a few extra victory points or something.
OMG. Sarvat. I've actually been wanted to reach out to her because I want to play a little bit more competitively. Because I feel like, well, first of all, one of the questions I have for you in these cards.
Yeah, we're kind of.
I know we did. But would you ever play in a competition or like super competitively?
I mean, the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
But the long answer is yes, but I would have to really figure out the time management with that. Because, if I'm going to get into something that's a competitive nature, I have to dedicate the real time to it.
I bet.
It can't be a hobby. So I would have to figure out what am I going to stick a pin in now.
Got it.
So I can focus on this. Which,
yeah.
At the current moment, I don't think that's possible because I wouldn't be able to put the proper time and the work into
totally
in the whole thing. But overall, yes, if the opportunity's there, then I'm all about it. As someone who grew up in team sports, and I do have a very competitive spirit. It's mellowed out quite a bit over the years, but I still have that as part of me, and the competition is always really fun to me. But for me, it's like, to not put the work in, for me personally, not to put the work in anything, I feel like would be almost like a disrespect.
Totally,
to the
I
ones
get
that.
that.
But yeah, I mean, the idea of it is really cool. But you're thinking about it a little bit, you think?
I am, and that Sarvat talking about her made me bring up the question, obviously, because I'm wanting to reach out to her to kind of like just play some game, kind of show me the ropes a little bit. Sarvat, shout out to her. She's the national Canadian champion. But I'm kind of like you. I always just played for fun. Like I'm competitive by nature, so like obviously I'm not playing to like lose. I'm gonna play to win. But like the amount of gaming that would have to go into like learning strategies and really kind of like I think putting in like a sports type mentality of like practice and practice and practice. I'm not sure if I'm ready to be there yet, but like it's super intriguing. Sure. I'd love to like dabble in it if there's a way to dabble, like even just like go play a game just to see what the environment's like and then come back. But also like I wouldn't want to disrespect it, and also I don't want people to think I'm like a schlum if I go there and like lose in the first game.
Yeah. And no, I don't think you want that. But I think that's for me, not to quote Star Wars, the whole Yoda says do or do not. I think for me, it's like there's a fine line that could be dangerous when you're like, let me just see what happens.
Yeah, no, totally.
And it's just like, if you're not going to put yourself in a position to really present yourself in the best way, then don't do it.
Exactly.
It's the same with like acting auditions or whatever. If you're not feeling it, people know.
Oh, big facts.
And I've done auditions where I wasn't feeling it, and I knew they could feel my energy. And walking out, I just knew, I was like, I'm not getting that role.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel that though. You're like, you want to. It'd be nice if you could have your cake and eat it.
Exactly.
Like, let me just try this out and see what happens. But at the same time, you're not going to feel very fulfilled.
No, exactly. No, real talk. Biggest talk.
So maybe someday though. You never know.
Exactly.
CATAN's not going anywhere. So.
No, it's not. And that's why, I have Miss Sarvat, so she'll help me out, I'm sure, before I get out there. I don't think she would even want me to bring her name up and then have me go out and just try. You brought up Star Wars, which also made me think of a question I have here. What's your favorite?
Do you actually have stuff on the cards, or do you just kind of go off of what
You'll
I'm saying?
never know.
You're like Norm Macdonald on Weekend Update when you shuffle the papers.
Yes. I actually...
That's actually
we'll
a good
see.
move. You're just... Because that means you're actively listening, but kind of giving you this whole thing of, you know, I've got these cards. But it's like, oh, no, wait, you brought that up. Speaking of that,
exactly.
That's smooth.
I think I'm a... One of the things that I've liked to attribute to myself is I think I'm a good listener. But I feel like people who may say that out loud and actually are not great listeners, so we'll see.
Yeah, but also, you could just be... You're a pretty authentic and real person. I feel like... That's
Big facts.
Just a fair self-assessment.
I think so as well. But to my question,
Yes.
What is your favorite version of Catan? Because I think I have an idea, but I don't know if it's true.
Oh, Starfarers.
Exactly,
100%.
I thought so.
Yeah.
What about it makes it your favorite?
You know, when people look at Starfarers, and anyone who's not familiar, whether you're a Catan enthusiast or not, it can be really intimidating because there's all these different set pieces and everything. But what I like about it is, you know, it really sets everybody up in a more equal place of putting yourself in a position to do things, because the way the base game is set up, either you roll the numbers and get your resources, or your numbers don't come up at all. Mm-hmm. Whereas on your turn on Starfarers, when it's your turn, even if none of your numbers hit, depending on how many points you have, you either get 2 free resource cards.
Oh my goodness,
or
very
you get 1
true.
free resource card.
Yes.
So you always have an opportunity to grab a resource, and maybe those 2 resources you got were the 2 goods you needed for a trade ship, and maybe you can use that trade ship to go to a trade post and get those 2 victory points. And even when a 7's rolled and you get robbed, you get a card back from the community pile. So I just feel like that puts you in the best position. You're never completely out of it, where if your numbers don't roll in the base game or in Cities and Knights, you're kind of screwed. You know, and so you really are. It's a different kind of skill set, because in the base game you really do have to rely on those trades and also your numbers hitting. But in Starfarers, even if no one trades with you, there's still that chance you'll get the card you need on your turn. You know, so. And also, they think counter cards when you shake the rocket ship.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
Yeah, that determines how far you get to go on the board, so you actually are exploring D space. And you know, when me, Rio, who's one of the regulars on the Catan streams, and my partner at Geckhead, Freddie, when we play together, we turned it into like an acting exercise when they're talking to these merchants or these pirates. So it's almost like RPG, and that's role playing games for anyone unfamiliar and listening. Meets this kind of structured board game.
Big facts.
So you're really able to bring a lot of your personality into it, and that's why I like it. And you know, I just felt like it was more immersive. But
yeah,
the base game is very, you know, base game is like Magic and Bird in the NBA.
Of course,
that's the OG. You gotta feel respect, and they're always gonna be like have their own greatness. But you know, it's like Starfarers is like the Kobe and Jordan for me.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Okay,
and
I love sports.
Yeah. Well, I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but you know what today is, our recording date is.
I don't know.
So
the 24th.
8/24, Kobe Bryant Day.
Oh wow, because of his numbers. Okay, I do know something.
It's an official thing in California. It's
wow, I never knew that.
And that's why I'm wearing my Lakers shirt.
Oh my goodness, I did think of honestly, I know people love the Lakers because we're in LA and stuff like that. But when you came up, I was like,
he's a Clipper fan.
Oh, and you heard it.
You heard it on the stream too. I mean, I'm open about that one.
I was like, oh well, we're off season, but he's wearing but I mean, I just imagine people wear Lakers shirt anywhere.
Yeah, I love my Lakers. I love the Bulls too. I grew up in Chicago.
8/24.
But yeah, today's
good to know.
So our recording date, 8/24, which when we scheduled it, I didn't realize it when we said let's do next Tuesday. Then I saw what the date was. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I like that. I like that we're doing it on Kobe Day.
I love that too. I mean, I'm not a huge sports, or I shouldn't say I'm not a huge basketball fan, but one of the things that really touched me is how much his spirit touched so many people. Like that day, like everybody was mourning. It was
Still
crazy.
Are too, you know.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know if I told you my Kobe Bryant story when I
don't know it.
So I know we're supposed to talk about.
There's editing.
There is, but this does, I guess, could parlay into competitive nature and Catan. We'll bring it back around full circle.
We will.
the backstory is this: when I was 12 years old in 1997, 12, 13 years old, I was used to be able to attend Bulls practices. This is when I was living in Chicago because my travel basketball coach was good friends with like one of the Bulls trainers.
Oh wow.
So I was able to kind of just quietly watch the practices there under the condition that, no photographs. And this is back in everyone. This is 1997, so photographs meant real, like cameras winding up the film and everything, and it's flash. And if you didn't use flash, you're screwed. The picture won't come out, and you won't know until you take it to
Walmart or whatever those things is. We don't talk about.
And don't ask for autographs. That was just what I was told, and I said, whatever, sure. So, it came around, I was watching 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different practices, just absorbing everything, but just really being in awe of these athletes. And one day, Michael Jordan comes over and says, hey to everybody, and he just kind of asks, like, points at me, he's like, is this your kid, the one I was kind of hearing about? And coach is like, yes, sir, this is him. He's like, well, let's see what he's got. Let's do a quick game to 3. And so...
With Jordan?
With Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan's like, that's kind of what he does.
Jon Lee Brody.
He has a history of quick game to 3, because 3 is easy, especially when you're an NBA player. You can score 3 points really quick.
Yeah.
Where if we would have played to 11, it would have gone a little longer because that's just more points to score. But also you are given a chance for some sort of dumb luck to happen.
Completely.
So quick game to 3, his first move was he fake left, went right. I thought he was going to go for a layup, but he just stopped on a dime, pulls up for this jumper, goes in. And we're playing make it, take it. He takes it back, and he's talking all sorts of stuff, going, you think I'm going to do the same move? I'm going to go to the left now and show you I can shoot my left. Goes to the left, and actually shoots with his left hand.
Oh, wow.
And makes it
my goodness.
perfectly, like it wasn't any adjustment. And then game point comes up, and he says, all right, I'm going to do the shot you came to see. This is how Michael was, and I noticed that this is how he was with NBA players, too, where he was telling you what he was going to do before he was going to do it, and while he was doing it, he's basically his own kind of play-by-play and color commentator.
That's crazy.
And he's like, I'm going to do the fadeaway, I'm going to fake left, turn baseline, rise up, and that's going to be game. And he did the whole thing, and it actually rimmed out. So I don't know what to attribute to that, because there's no reason why he should have missed that shot, because he's Michael Jordan, but it just somehow just spun out. I grab the rebound, I take it back behind the three-point line, because in half court, that's the rule. You got to kind of clear the ball. And he's not really paying attention, playing defense. He's just kind of half jogging back, and I shoot the jumper, and it goes in.
Oh, snap.
And I'm going nuts. I'm like, I just made a basket.
Yeah, on Michael Jordan.
Well,
is that not a thing?
I'll come around to that. But he just kind of looks, and he's kind of pissed off that this happened.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, all right, I guess it's your ball. So I really only had one go-to move, fake left, go right, and I was going to just go for the layup and try for the best. And he lets me go by him, which I know this isn't a good sign. If somebody's going to just let you do it, then it's never going to end well. I'm about to lay the ball up. I just see his giant hand grab it like an orange out of the air.
Oh, my goodness.
And he's like, get that weak out of here.
Oh, okay.
And I'm 12 years old. And
oh, my
he's
gosh.
looking at this stuff. And you might have to use a sheep leaps on this, or I'll just because I don't think... so I'm trying to keep it to a minimum, so your editing's at a minimum. But it has more impact when I use the actual word. So he gets the ball, he grabs it, gets the ball back. He's like, all right, take 2. I'm going to do the whole thing, left, right, fade up, and that's going to be game. Does the whole thing, and shot goes in. He wins 3-1 because he's Michael Jordan. And, he did give me, he's like, hey, solid shot. It's like, you got to go up strong on that layup. It's like, it's like, you got to go up strong on that. That's all he really said to me, and he, it's everything you would expect out of Michael Jordan. So this is the backstory leading into my Kobe Bryant story. So years later, this is maybe 2014, 2015, is maybe 2015, or around that time. It was 2015, 2016, somewhere in those years. It's a little fuzzy. I meet Kobe Bryant at this kind of event at some mansion in the Hollywood Hills. I don't even remember what it was for. And everyone's, of course, trying to say hi to Kobe. And I go up to him, shake his hand. And I said, hey, man, Kobe, if you got like 5-6 minutes, I've got a story I think you're going to really enjoy, and it involves myself and Michael Jordan. And he's like, oh, word? He's like, I got to hear this.
Yeah.
And so I told him the whole story, basically everything I told you. And Kobe was a really active listener. Just kind of really was like listening, kind of like this intense stare. He's kind of smiling. I was like, okay. And he asked a lot of questions. He's like, wait, how old were you again? I was like, I was about 12, 13. He said, what year? I was like, this is 97. So I was like, they were about to win their 5th championship in Chicago. It was that season. He's like, oh, Robert. He's like, you scored on Mike? And I said, well, because it's funny that you said that. I was like, well, I don't know if I would word it like that. I didn't score on Michael Jordan. He was on the same court as I was in a game a friendly game to 3. But I wouldn't say I scored on him. I scored I'm telling him, he's like, yeah, but you scored a basket. It's like, he didn't shut you out. I was like, no. I was like, no, he didn't. So I mean, I got one, but ultimately he won 3-1. He's like, all right, and he kind of like is absorbing everything I just told him, and then he just looks at me, not in like the full Mamba stare. I call it the half Mamba. And he looks at me, you're going to have to sheep bleep again, just FYI.
Okay, go
so
for
he
it.
just looks at me. So after hearing everything about me playing Michael Jordan, here's his story, looks at me and goes, no, you wouldn't have scored shit on me, right?
I love that.
And I love that for 2 reasons. One, that's very much the Kobe we knew and loved on the basketball court, the Mamba. But also, that for me to witness firsthand how competitive he still is with Michael, who was kind of like his big brother and someone he looked up to and idolized, up until even all through his time in the NBA. Michael was always somebody, the standard of measure he was, looking to not only reach but surpass. So just to kind of see that's how competitive they are with each other. And after that he goes, I'm gonna text Mike and tell him he's soft. And
oh my god!
And I was like, I don't know if he ever sent that or not. He was probably just.
That's hilarious.
And I said, well, that's kind of funny if you're gonna tell him like, hey, some guy who you have no idea who this guy is just told me that he scored on you when he was 12 years old. And then from that moment on, Michael Jordan took it personally. But it, that kind of competitive nature. When I think about that moment a lot, just kind of that look, and the way he was able to separate those two things. The Black Mamba was doing the stuff in the court, and then the Kobe is the one we got to see up until his unfortunate, passing. And like that's kind of like how I approach Catan. Like, but I still do it with a lot of fun. I don't want it to be so serious and cutthroat, but. I am there to win, though.
Facts.
There are days I go in, it's just like whatever.
Yeah.
And those never end well. But if you go in focused, even if you don't win, but going with that mentality of, no, I'm going to play to win.
Big facts.
I'm here to be with my friends too, but I'm here to win. And so that I think of Kobe a lot when it comes to that stuff. Just compartmentalizing, but also finding that balance.
Yeah.
Because you can have that winner's mentality, but also still have fun with your friends.
Big facts.
That's what I think. So.
Well, with that being said, how do you deal with losing sometimes?
I mean, look, no one likes to lose.
Mm-hmm.
But as I get older, you really find the value in it because instead of focusing on, oh no, it's like there's more than one definition of winning.
Yeah.
So I think winning there could be a results-based winning of I scored the most points, I did this, and I won this particular contest. But I think another form of winning can be, well, even if I didn't win this match, if I wasn't the victor in this match, if I can learn from that and apply that to the next game, and see what I did right, see what I did wrong, really be honest with it, and that goes way beyond Catan or anything, then I think you're still winning. Ultimately, you can still lose a competition, but you can still be a winner overall.
Big facts.
So that's where the way I look at it. And, I think people have a very, preconceived notion of what winning is. Winning takes on many forms. Your definition of winning may not be the same as mine.
Big facts.
Doesn't mean yours is wrong. Doesn't mean mine's wrong or right or yours right and mine's right. Just means that means something different to everybody else. And but that's the whole thing. It's not black and white. It's not an absolute. So I may have lost the game of Catan, but I learned something about how someone plays. I learned about someone's tendencies. So when we come back, I'm ready to really go at it again. And so yeah, that's how I am now. Now, if you're talking to me my younger years, I'm cussing up a storm.
Oh really? You're one of those.
It was one of those very much.
In all things?
Pretty much, because that goes along with like middle child syndrome, and feeling overlooked, and in certain aspects. So it's just that pressure I put on myself when I was younger you gotta win this thing, or otherwise it doesn't matter. which, the arrogance and ignorance of youth kind of like does that to you.
Yeah.
But also it's almost like programmed into our minds a bit, because it's like, well, if you don't walk away with the W, it means nothing. I'm like, does it though? It's like, maybe in certain people's eyes, but people who are actually doing the craft, you're only going to be a loser if you let yourself be a loser.
True. True. I think, well, first off, a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of, but some of our other guests, especially Sarvat and another competitor we had, talked a lot about that, as the like strategies of still like looking back at those games you lose and looking about how like the player played and stuff like that, learning those kind of things, and also just learning like different winning strategies that you wouldn't have thought of or that you didn't think of.
Yeah. And you got to just move and adapt, because what you did last week may not, or the last game may not work the next game.
True.
So if you're going in just kind of with this preconceived plan and only sticking to that plan, when you really should be pivoting here and there, you're only cheating yourself.
Just like life.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And then people wonder why it didn't go right the next time. Why did this happen again? But, you're only a success. They say you're only a success when you commit a successful act. And so if you want to be, so if you're only going to think in results-based stuff, then you only think you're successful when you've booked the job, won the game. Whereas success is always making sure that, okay, results are what they are, but what's the in-between? So you can find a way to still be a success in between, because you're still learning and growing each day, and getting better. Whereas when people just get so stuck in results and kind of sulk in the loss, I'm more like, if I didn't get a job or I didn't get an audition, I'm like, okay, well, I didn't do this, but I know where my deficiencies are. Let me fix that. Yeah. And then you can't wait to get back in there. You know what I mean? But if you sit and sulk, you're scared, almost a little scared of that next one.
Yeah, OMG. I've been there. Well, what's really funny is, so you knew we had to reschedule because I had a callback today. And my callback didn't go as I would have liked it to. And, like, literally I had to just be like feel my emotions for a second, because I'm not about, like, shoving like, down.
Sure.
And
you should do a graphic of like a sheep like swear jar or something, like
OMG.
A sheep leaf jar, or we'll just like see how many it adds up.
That's so funny. I love that idea. But I really have to just tell myself, well, first of all, like, whatever's meant to be will always be. That's something that I just kind of stick to. But it was really just one of those things where, like, it's got to happen, And I think, like, I come from, like, comedy world more than acting and stuff like that. And, like, some of my worst sets taught me so much about, like, where to put pauses, where to not put pauses, where to, like, interject, or, just different things like that. So I'm so about it. But, like, I feel like I just needed to hear that.
Yeah, really, absolutely. On the subject of comedy, I feel like the thing that fascinates me most about comics, and I haven't seen enough of yours, I would like to see more of yours on stage, but when I watch certain comedians, like, I love watching their movement on stage. And also, so I don't know how much thought I guess my question to you is, how much thought do you put into your movement on stage, and also microphone? There's this comedian who's done a bunch of stuff for Gaghead. His name's Josh Wolf. He was on Chelsea Lately for years, and he is like a master of adjusting the microphone stand, when to take the microphone off, when to put it back, when to use his hands when he talks, and that always fascinated me about comedians. So I don't know, do you put a lot of thought into that particular element? Completely.
Especially now, though. Those are things that, like, I would even sometimes do by accident, or I know when I first started, I wouldn't pay attention to what I was doing, but now, like, I know those nuances, like, really make a difference. Just in people, like, literally, I mean, you're a filmmaker, so you get it, and just, like, not pacing too much, because then, like, where do they focus, and then they get distracted, or, like, now I do act outs on purpose for different punchlines even. Like, I may not have a word punchline, but maybe I have the act out as the punchline, if you will. So, like, I definitely pay a lot more attention to, like, not wasting, like, literally any second, any time on stage, or try not to.
That's great.
Yeah. But before I would say I would not do that. I would just go on stage and see what happened.
Right. Fair enough.
Well, like, I had a plan, but it wasn't so, like, it was more about the wording, not necessarily about, like, my movement and even microphone placement. One of the things that I learned about even microphone placement was I took a like a performance class, but it was stage performance, and that was something that they went over, is talking about like how to hold the mic in like a way to kind of also project but still like not cover your face and all that stuff. So I was like, wow.
See, this is the stuff that people don't like think about. And that's sort of stuff. That's kind of like the 0.01% of things. When I'm always trying to go to that 0.01%. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, when you explain things through something like Universal, like a board game, and you're talking about strategies and everything, but you really got. I think it can be a great almost application to real life, because
Real talk.
you have all these plans or whatever, but you have to learn to pivot. You have to learn to adjust. And me being a filmmaker, you know, stuff goes wrong all the time on sets. And there's this fantasy we sell ourselves when we're grinding up, like, when I get $100 million movie, there's going to be less mistakes. Like, actually, no, there's going to be more mistakes. It's just you can throw money at some of those mistakes on a bigger shoot. But, you know, that's what really separates, I think, the good from the great.
Yeah.
Is what's your ability to pivot? What's your ability to maneuver yourself through this? Because when we all set up the board for Catan, we all have an idea of what we want.
Big facts.
We're thinking, oh, if I'm go last, I'm going to make sure I get a sheep, a wheat, and an ore, so I at least have a development card to start out. You know, I'm a big fan of that. Whatever that, I think that's like the Queen's Gambit equivalent in Catan. You know, it's like the development card strategy if you're going last with the order. But sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes you go first, and you just got to be like, all right, well, I'm going first now, so what do I really need? And that could mean you need the wood and the brick, because you may want to build out, or do you want to gamble and go for the wheat, the sheep, and the ore? Or just sometimes just becomes a numbers game. You know, I do switch it up sometimes. You know, sometimes I'm just like, oh, well, let me try this one and just go for like a 6. Or and just see what happens. You know, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes I just go straight for. I used to never look at the numbers. I was just going right for the resources.
Oh, interesting.
And a lot of times I would win those games.
Oh, really?
Just because I had all my bases covered, and you know, a little bit of luck because those numbers would roll. But you know, but that's the whole thing. Or you have a plan to build out your road this way, and then
somebody blocks you.
Or Sarvat. It was Sarvat.
Oh my God!
On this one Catan Universe game when she could have easily gone the other way.
I remember this one.
And I was like, it's not like you had nowhere else to go. And literally, like, that sucked because I had to sit through the rest of that game, not be able to do anything. So I was just stuck on 4 points the rest of the game because I literally couldn't move anywhere.
That was just shade.
No, it was. And I'm not afraid to call it out. That was 100%.
I know you did it.
But the moment I called it out, it became all, like, I had no choice. I'm like, actually, you had 3 places you could have gone. I remember him
and we're all still friends, guys. This is just how Catan goes.
Well, the jury's out on that.
Oh, God! Oh, no!
Well, we'll let people wonder.
Yeah.
That's going to make for better TV when she comes back. So I'll let you all wonder what's really going on.
Oh, I love it. OMG. What's really funny is, in my cards of no questions, you answered a lot of things that I had on here.
Maybe I took a peek at the cards.
Maybe you did, but if not, you did amazing. But one of the questions I did have that you didn't really touch on, but you kind of skid by. What's your favorite development card, besides a victory point?
Ooh. I mean, it really... just in general...
Because you know there's like 12,000 night cards.
Right. Well, you know, it just... I like the Monopoly... There's 2 I like a lot.
Oh my goodness.
I'll get into Monopoly. So I like the Tahir plenty.
Okay.
Because that's like really quick. I know what I can get out of this. That's like the very short term... You know, it's a very helpful thing to have. I like Monopoly because you really have to use your brain. You really have to focus on what's going on and who's using what. And that's really fun for me. So when I get a Monopoly card, I do like to absorb, like, oh, what just roll, what do they spend, what they build, and then you just kind of strike when it's ready to go. And so I like those 2 for different reasons. Your Plenty is very good for like the short term, like the quick fix. Like, I need these 2 things. Let me just get a wood and a brick so I can build this road out. Or I needed a wood and a brick so I could finish this settlement. But I like those 2. It's between those 2 cards, I would say, are my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what strategy do you play most often with? Because you said before you didn't really look at the numbers at one point. Now you do, or maybe you don't now, but you've changed it up a little bit. What's kind of working for you now?
It's that's the funny thing. It's the whole. I don't know how familiar you are with. I know everyone knows Bruce Lee movies, but I don't know how familiar you are with his philosophy, which is some of the coolest stuff you'll probably ever look into. But in his book, he had this idea called Jeet Kune Do.
Okay.
There's different martial arts, and Jeet Kune Do isn't actually a martial art. It's actually a philosophy of how to apply
Okay.
stuff to your martial art, or also really to your life. That's really, in my opinion, what Bruce was talking about when he said, "Be like water, be adaptable. Don't just limit yourself to this one form." It's
Completely.
like you could do this, but also be like water, flow, crash, and mold yourself into whatever shape you need to be. And the whole mantra for Jeet Kune Do is use no way as way, use no limitation as limitation. So it's a fine balance of having that fundamental foundation of knowing what the game is, but really I don't go in with a set plan. It's really I don't want to it's like you want to just move and react with your own instincts. So I really try to go in with no technique, no plan. I know the game well enough. Let me just see what's on the board, what's here in this moment,
Got
which is
it.
another metaphor for life.
Yeah, no, real talk.
What's going on in front of us right now? What's on the board? What did this person do?
Yeah.
And to me, that's been the best thing of really paying attention to what's on the board, what's everybody else doing, hypothesizing a little bit of what their strategies are, but then at the end of the day, knowing what you have to do to get yourself there outside of trades, and then from trades, seeing what can be advantageous for you. So that's my approach. It's like to say you're going without a plan. It sounds like you're not taking it seriously, but I say that you go in without a set plan with knowing the fundamentals of the game, and that applies to acting, sports, podcasting, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your cards, but you've looked at them maybe 3-4 times just because we know each other. You know how to host. You know how to listen, and we know Catan. So we can really just let this conversation go where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So that's really my approach to Catan, and it's easier to apply to something that's very linear.
True.
But I do try to apply it to my real life as much as possible.
Well, I think life is I kind of think of life as a game, and not like a game like to like strategize.
Well, we are in a
things like
simulation.
that.
I mean, this is a simulation moment right
Yeah, but I just like what I love about Catan is like there is that still idea of trading. Like you don't have to get to the top or win without with stepping out without help, asking for help from other people. You know what I mean? So I just love I think a lot of games transition in that way, especially
Catan. Really, when you look at it in terms of I mean, during the pandemic last year, obviously a lot of things were happening social justice wise, which I wasn't shy about talking about on the show.
Neither am I.
And you're not shy about that. And we shouldn't be as creators and people of color, and just as human beings. To say nothing of our ethnicities, we shouldn't be. We should point out bad behavior and bad acts when they happen. And the underlying theme of last year was talking about inclusivity and equality. When you really look at Catan, it is one of the most, if not the most inclusive game ever in terms of equality as well, because everybody starts with 2 settlements and a road for each settlement. So everybody starts with 2 points, and everything is down to the fate of where the dice roll, what numbers may land. But you need these resources together collectively to win. You can't just win on wood and brick alone.
No.
You can't just win on development cards alone. You can get pretty close, but you still have to use all these cards and include everybody. And also, you can't alienate people in their trades, Like Macaulay Culkin embargoed Sarvat during his second appearance, and I think she's still embargoed by Macaulay. But which was great, made for great TV, trust me.
Yeah.
But you have to keep that open mind of
Big facts.
Even though we're not working together at the same time,
We are.
Exactly. So I really love when you really look at deep down at Catan, it is a competition, but at the same time you need each other to really make it happen. You're not going to do it all on your own.
Yeah.
Because even though you need everyone else to roll the dice too, and those numbers may need to hit your numbers.
Exact.
So
that too. Very that.
So I think I would hope that anyone listening to this, when they really look at the mechanics of Catan, like it really is all about like equality and inclusion. everybody's starting from the same spot. Now it's a matter of luck meets preparation and all that stuff. And the individuals themselves really dictate where they're going to go, but everybody starts in the same spot. It's a level playing field when you begin. And that's not always the case in real life.
Big facts.
Entertainment, whatever. So I think that's a beautiful thing about the game. And the variables, it changes each time. You know, all the patterns and everything, all the different configurations you can do. The fact that you can play this game back to back to back to back. We could play 4 games in a row. Each one of those configurations will be different. And you got to move and adapt. But still, we're all starting from that same spot. You know, and I think that's really awesome.
Beautiful, yeah. I really love that. Do you have any questions for me?
Why are you such a cheat?
Oh my God! Never once.
No, actually, that's true.
Yeah, I was like, because my thing with cheating is I want to win knowing that I'm like the best, or like you know, doing my best.
For those listening, Gerard is not a cheating. Rio, I'm not to name names. You know.
No,
he's not either. But we like to just...
shout out to Rio too, because he's the one who introduced us.
That's true.
Yeah, so hosting a Catan night.
What was that? 2019?
The tail end, kind of towards
2019.
that. Yeah.
I think it was me, you, Kaylee, and Rio at Rio's
I think
house.
So.
And so
it was definitely
3 times in a row, there's a robber.
Yes,
if people listen to the last episode, my first episode that I did for the TCID core, the core series of TCID, where I didn't even know Gerard at this time. I never knew of him. Met him that night. I'm like, this guy seems cool. Whatever. We're all just doing our thing. And it comes 3rd time in a row, man. He's placing the robber. This is not personal. I'm gonna rob you. I'm like, hold on, man. I was like, this is the 3rd time in a row. And we all had a great laugh about it. And I just remember, and I brought this up before, but I feel like your podcast is growing. This is these branded episodes, so we may be hitting a new audience. So they may not have heard this story.
Yeah.
Where there was a rule that we thought was a rule, where that apparently
maybe that might be my cheating story.
Maybe,
if anything.
Yeah, but you weren't aware that wasn't a rule, though. If you knew that wasn't the case, and you made me think so. I kept on, like, I would build, and then I'd be like, oh, does anyone have this? And Gerard, first off, he was nice. He's like, you can't trade after you build. And I said, oh, you can't? And I was like, no. I was like, oh, okay. And, you know, it kept slipping my mind, because I'm in a groove. I'm feeling good. Like, I just built this other settlement. Like, oh, if I get another ore, I can turn this into a city. I'm like, anybody have ore? Second time around, Gerard's a little more annoyed. Like, you can't trade after you build.
Yeah.
A little more firm. I'm like, oh, yeah, my bad. Rule of 3s, right? Comedy's rule of 3s. So come back around, 3rd time, I'm feeling, because, you know, you get lost in the game, man. So I'm like, I'm not thinking about... I'm like, all right, does anybody like, you can't trade after you build? Like, Gerard was...
Yeah, I was not having it that time. I was like, I've already told you like twice now.
And, so 3rd time, and...
that energy.
I'm sure, and then towards the end, and then Kaylee ended up winning the game in like 2 turns after the 3rd time. So there probably would have been a 4th.
OMG.
Had Kaylee not won that game. But this carries over to the live streams we were doing. And I was implementing that rule of, oh, you can't trade after you build, guys, remember, and then... When we were doing them on Facebook, we were simulcasting between the Get page and the Catan page, and I think it was Kelly or Guido going, "You can trade anytime you want." And this is before Gerard's officially on the show, but he was watching and commenting, and that became a thing too. I was like, "Well, what the heck, Gerard?" I was like, this whole time, like, and that's why that became the thing of I kept calling out Gerard on the show, and then Gerard came on the. So that was. Yeah. Not planned, but then it kind of fell into my lap as little mini storylines. But that's the thing. It became a thing where it's like, I don't trust you because you told me the wrong rule. I think even at your...
that was passed on to me from Mikel Monleon, who actually nicely did the sheep and stuff for the cards and whatnot. We should shout him out. He's my little graphic artist.
So you're the problem.
He's the problem, yes!
This whole time?
Yes. No, it's Mikel Monleon.
All right.
But I'm noticing that my widescreen might die soon, which is plugged into the mics. So before we end this, I do have one last question for you. You may have kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you could, for anybody who's listening or watching who has not played Catan, why should they?
Because it's fun, man.
Right? No, real talk. I mean, there you go.
You know,
If you haven't heard by now.
when you look at board games as a whole, it's always like a direct competition, and board games have really evolved in recent times because now you have co-op board games out there where you're working together towards a common goal, or you have there's a lot of these co-op things going on where Monopoly, you're out for yourself. I think when it comes to a game like Catan or really, especially modern board games or RPGs, role-playing games for anyone unfamiliar with the term, the sense of community, man. You really get that. I really do think it's a fine balance of competition. You really got to use your head, and you really got to adapt. You can't stay on this strict path with this thing. You really have to pivot when necessary. But also you have to utilize the rapport with other people. Now, these people aren't your they're not your friends, but they're also not your enemies. You can help each other out, and I think that's true in life as well, where you're going to meet people who not everybody's going to be, we're not everybody's going to be bros like me and you.
Yeah.
We lucked into this situation where we just clicked like that. Rio, the same thing. We just clicked in that way, and it's a small handful of people like that, but for the most part, you are going to have these like working friendships. And that's very true in Hollywood. Sometimes people are really just kind of work buddies, and that's okay. But I think this is like Catan really, when you look beyond the hexagon board, the hexagon shapes, and all the resources, and everything at face value. When you really look at the core of it, you think about we all start from the same place. It requires you to use your head, be inclusive, work with other people, but also keep your best interests at heart. Making sure you're taking care of you. I really feel like, that sort of mentality is a very healthy mentality for you to take out into the real world, and it's just, if you want to use your head, have a fresh board every time, there's no other game that does that. Monopoly is the same thing over and over and over again, and that's like watching the same movie over and over again. As much as you may love that movie, you're cheating yourself out of a new experience by not having these variables. And Catan supplies that all in one box.
It's so true.
Literally, you rearrange the configuration. That's a brand new game, brand new strategy. You got to figure that out really quick. So I just really think in terms of our brain power, it's really important, especially in the digital age, because we're getting very used to using technology to do everything. Nobody knows how to read a paper map anymore because we have GPS on our phones. So people are getting too used to like maybe playing Catan Universe on their iPad, which I'm a big fan of. But there's nothing like opening up the box, setting up the board, physically moving pieces, because I really do think there's a disconnect when you're using when technology's doing everything.
Yeah,
your brain kind of gets a little complacent, almost not as active, because it knows that it can kind of go on autopilot. But you can't do that here. If you actually want to put yourself in a position to be like a winner in this game, or just have a fighting chance, you really have to be present in it and really move and adapt. So
especially in other people's turns.
That's really where you win the game. That's the thing, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because you learn the most when you kind of observe others. Whether it be board games, sports, or in life. When you really take pause and just like be present, not just in moments that involve you directly or benefit you directly. When you're just really paying attention to this moment. Anytime I've done that, I've always won that Catan game. When I was kind of down, when I kind of wasn't really there, I'm not winning.
Yeah. And well, we joke, but Shauna, who's also on the live stream, she really takes notes of like who got this card, when they rolled, or like all the number they rolled.
Because
and I mean, she has results go in her favor.
She's also a killer too, man.
She's a killer. She will block you in. And she'll tell you I did it, so you don't get this resource.
She'll give like, I'm sorry, but I got to do this. I'm like, are you? Are you though?
Yeah.
She's like, I am. I'm like, huh. All right. Well,
that's funny.
So that's why I would say
I love that.
Play this game. If anything, try something new for the first time, and at least you ultimately know whether you click with it or not.
Yeah.
I think you're cheating yourself out of so many experiences by just saying, well, I don't know this, so I'm not going to do it. It's just like, give it a shot.
True.
That doesn't apply to every single thing. I'm not saying go out there and try crystal.
Oh my god.
No, I'm not saying. when it comes to new experiences in life, reading a new book, I'm talking specifically
things that are beneficial for your soul, your life.
Yeah,
your health.
watching a new movie. It's like. It's like that Seinfeld episode. Remember when George did the opposite of his natural instinct? I don't know if you watched Seinfeld.
Oh, I did. I totally did.
There was an episode where George is like, I've done the same thing. I'm going to do the opposite of everything I'm used to. So he's being honest with this woman he's like, I'm George. I'm unemployed. I live with my parents. He's like, and he gets her number.
Oh, I love.
And then he gets an interview with the Yankees, and he cusses out George Steinbrenner. And he's like, you've turned the Yankees into a laughing stock of New York. And he's like, hire this man.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
So maybe sometimes when there's that old saying, when nothing is going right, then go left. So I think, again, that applies here and it applies to life. Yeah.
Love that. So I'm going to leave because we have a little bit. Oh, actually.
We're good. Yeah.
What's something, this is where this is the perfect time. When we were walking in, I was like, there's a question that might apply to you, an answer that, whatever. I found out something to you that might apply to this question. What's something that you collect that nobody really knows about?
Ooh. I don't know what people wouldn't know about because I'm pretty open about my nerdiness.
Yeah.
Right now, nothing really. I've kind of, veered away from kind of the material stuff. So I used to really collect vintage toys, and there's still a part of me that wants that because I didn't get to have the Kenner Star Wars toys or the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers toys in the 90s and stuff like that. But, I collect comic books, I collect stuff like that, but, one thing I do, it's not really a collection, I just have three of them. I like typewriters. Oh. So I have different typewriters. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Like antique typewriters and antique radios.
Okay.
So I like, even though I I would have loved to have just been a fly in the wall or just be able to have a quantum leap moment and experience the 1940s and 50s. How time was, how time was back then. These radio serial shows. I love radio shows.
Interesting.
Back in the day, the Superman radio serial was the big thing. You would gather around the big radio set and not the TV and listen to these stories.
Oh wow!
And you had to rely on these radio DJs and
great storytellers. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I like antiques. I like stuff from different eras more than anything. But I don't know if right now if there's a big collectible, but I don't think anybody knew about my typewriter.
No, that I was like, wow, interesting.
Yeah, typewriters and antique radios are my two. So I got a bunch from my mom's house back in Chicago. Yeah.
So earlier when we were walking up, I found out that you wear green socks.
I do.
All the time. That's what I thought maybe you were gonna say is you collect green socks.
Well, I don't collect those. So the green socks plays into how superstitious athletes are.
Okay.
When I had one of the best games I ever had in my life, when I wore these neon green socks during a game, and when that happens, that just becomes your thing.
Yeah.
And of course, me being from Chicago, growing up loving the Bulls, Michael Jordan, everyone knew that Michael Jordan wore his North Carolina shorts under his Bulls uniform.
Oh, interesting.
But also under his dress clothes because it gave him this.
No way.
Because the reason for that, for those unfamiliar of Michael Jordan's history, in 1982, UNC was playing Georgetown for the NCAA championship. Michael Jordan hit the game-winning shot as a freshman.
Oh, wow.
Which really elevated him. Turned, they say, Mike Jordan into Michael Jordan.
Oh,
as
wow.
we know now. And those North Carolina shorts give him that air of confidence. And that's what the neon green socks are for me.
I love.
If anyone could see on
hilarious.
Not to raise, I'm trying to appropriately raise my to parents. I'm trying to keep this a family-friendly podcast.
Oh my goodness.
So that's where the green socks come from, and it's, it's become something that everyone is like, oh, I love your socks.
Yeah.
That's all I wear. And then now you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
I know. I'm like, I've never noticed it, but now I'm like, if you don't wear green socks, I'm gonna be disappointed.
The only time I don't is when I'm taking a shower. At some point the green socks come off. But yeah, that really much plays into the athlete superstition. It's kind of like Linus and Peanuts has this security blanket. For me, when I wear the neon green socks, it's yeah, this is I feel whole. I feel good. This is that's my whole thing.
Jon Lee Brody, y'all.